gentlemen, welcome to This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes. We're going to start the death clock right now. We have 59 minutes left. This is a podcast about all the news, events, and cool things that are happening in the world of Privateer Press, War Machine, and Hordes specifically. Today, our special guest is Scott Tallarico from Party Foul. He was smart enough to bring it. Unlike Marc-Andre, he was smart enough to have a camera on his iPad so that we can actually see his lovely visage. If you're watching the Twitchcast, you have several different ways to tune into the podcast. If you want to watch us live, you can watch us live on our Twitch channel. Those that are on the Twitch channel can interact with us. Maelstrom over there, who's drinking a nice glass of wine, will be watching your comments and concerns, and he will pass them along to us.
Yep.
If you don't have time to tune in to the Twitchcast, you can watch us on YouTube. Yep. The YouTube link will be in the show notes. You can listen to us on iTunes, or finally you can go to the Moose Machine webpage or Facebook page, and we'll definitely have links galore there. All right, thanks for joining us, Scott. This week we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things, but I think the biggest thing to talk about today is what's happening at Gen Con. If you are tuned in at all to Facebook or Twitter, you know that about 6 billion teasers have hit the air. George, tell us what is going on in Gen Con.
Well, today is setup day at Gen Con. We're broadcasting on Wednesday the 29th. Mm-hmm. So just as people are getting there, setting up, all that kind of great stuff. And what we've seen basically falls into really three things. We've seen the back of the Pharaoh Brigand Warlord card. We've seen some bits and pieces of Zal 2, and we've seen bits and pieces of the Glacial King. We've seen the Glacial King in and out of his box. We've seen some pretty pictures of him. We've seen bits and pieces of Zal's cards, his spells, and the front of his card showing that he is a Focus or a Fury 7 caster, and we've seen the back of the Pharaoh Brigand's card. We will expect to see a lot more from these as soon as things go on sale in the next day or two. But as it is, we've got a few little nuggets in there.
Nuggets. Scott, what are you most excited about right now?
I do have a shopping ninja down there who's hopefully going to pick up Denny 3 for me.
Ooh. Oh, that's correct, and Denny 3.
This year, so that seems pretty good. But then I saw the picture of the Glacier King, so I was like, you son of a bitch, pick me up one of those too.
And we learned how much is the Glacial King?
I think I just saw on Twitter that they had, I think it was 135 US dollars sitting next to that Glacial King. So, converted into Canadian currency, that's only like $800.
$800. Yeah. Awesome. So we've already had a lot of speculation because it's been broken up. Just by that little bit of view of the back of Ezal's card, we know what the spells are.
Yeah, so the spell list, like, we haven't officially seen this, but everybody's saying that basically from the bits that we've seen, we've got Annihilation, Mage Sight, Sunder Spirit, Transference, and Vision.
All right. So none of us play Scorn here, right? Nope. Scott, you don't play Scorn?
I do not.
But the overall resounding hatred has already begun, saying that this is a piece of junk.
Well, that may just be the internet's hatred, because locally some of our Scorn players have told me that they actually think that the spell list isn't actually all that bad.
I think Mage Sight on any spell list right now. I've fought enough cricks in the last month and a half that I just want Mage Sight everywhere. Cool. Well, I don't think we need to talk too much more on that. There's also lack of excitement when it comes to the Piggy UA.
Well, I don't know why. The Pharaoh Brigand Warlord, basically the back of the card should just say makes Pharaoh good. Let's see here. We have.
But remember, pigs still suck.
They have.
It takes a lot to make a
gang,
pig good.
granted reform, tactics prowl. He has dig in. Yes, they're pigs, but it just should say make pigs better. Now, somebody was saying in a land where the Croak Raiders had not just been released, this card would have made a lot of people a lot more excited.
Right. What makes, sorry, you guys could know this better than I do, what makes the Croak Raiders such a mind-boggling thing for minions?
Well, the black oil, or not black oil, but the oil bomb is a really big thing, taking that extra damage from anything fire type.
Right.
You mix that with, well, just like half of things in the game. I used to play Legion, so of course, Croak Raiders plus Ravagors means a lot of damage.
Gotcha.
And there's a lot of synergies out there.
All right.
It carries over too, so if you get it on a caster and a caster doesn't die, and then you take the fire damage that next roll, it's still boosted.
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
It's not good.
Yeah,
That
boosted fire damage is a thing.
Ouch. All right, so moving off the Gen Con releases, let's move right into some of the exciting things we didn't get to talk about last week because we had to skip. We just talked about a lot. There was a lot of stuff last week.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about Acosta. The internet has been accosted by Acosta. Most of us who are into the fluff have read the book, loved the idea when Acosta came out. We were excited about it. And then the card got revealed, and now it's like, fuck you, Signar! What? So start with you, Scott.
The age of Signar is well into production here.
Let's start with you, Scott. What is exciting about Acosta? What do you see that's great?
Well, he's basically got better stats than most casters when you look at his baseline. So I know some of the rep players on Facebook cried about it right off the bat, saying he's better than their caster was. I think with Haley 3, he's going to be a beast. I mean, he has 3 points, but when you can get him up to like Def 17 and he's got riposte and he stabs you back and dodge, he's gonna get where he wants to get. He's going to kill a lot of stuff.
George, give us some of the stat line. Tell the folks out there what we're dealing with here.
Well, he is speed 7. He's the big thing though is the Def and Arm 15. He's got.
That's the big thing, dude. Matt 9. Come on. So.
Well, I was trying to bury the lead there. I was gonna get into that with the Stormglaive.
Oh my god.
Because of course he's a Matt 9 weapons master with 2 attacks on a PS13 weapon.
Well, the only thing that actually, in defense of the Signar out there, we all thought that he was going to also be considered a Storm Knight, or so that we could also just pair him with a
with the Stormclad?
With the Stormclad and get the boosted roll too.
Because
because that would have been awesome. But they took that away from us, so I mean that really dumbs him down.
But it's okay, he's steady, so he never loses his Def 15. Oh my god. And he is immune to electricity and fearless, of course.
And he can only go with Signar, so that's awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
We're not quite sure why he's a mercenary. Maybe because they didn't have a Signar book lined up right away, so they needed to get him out there.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I guess that's all we can say about Acosta is that he's badass, and it's going to look really awesome in one of my lists when I get back to Signar. All right, moving on to the next big piece of excitement was the Blindwater Brew Witch Doctor.
Yes.
Say that 10 times fast. So if you haven't seen this, it's a beautiful new model. And, of course, tell me a bit about what this model is, because we see these every year, but some people wouldn't know what we're talking about.
Oh, well, every year the Privateer Press puts out a model that is matched with a beer from the Ram, I believe it is, brew pub. They always do a specialized menu for Gen Con. They always do a brew, and I think this year it's the Blindwater Brew is the actual beer that goes with it. And PP releases a model to go with that beer. And this year it's kind of the cosplay Gatorman. Okay. So it is traditional to sort of have a pinup girl as the model,
right?
And then, or pinup guy, I guess, in the case of the troll kilt lifter, and in this case, it is a woman wearing, shall we say, a bad Halloween costume.
Gotcha.
But it is a really nice
cool,
model.
It's
got a little. She's carrying a knife and a little tiny, what looks like a pharaoh teddy bear, while there's a drunk pharaoh down on the bottom of the base. It's a gorgeous model.
And it's a limited edition. You can only get it during cons. And,
like the Blighted Bather and the Painter of Everblight and the Trollkin Kilt Lifter before them. You'll only be able to get it if you either attend a con or you manage to snag one during a con being on.
All right, we got 1 minute left, guys. Let's get to something a little more, well, it's not terribly controversial, but it's kind of, now that we've had this awesome thing for Signar, let's talk about some of the bad for Signar this week. we did have an infernal ruling on Haley 3 and charging. Scott, you know what I'm talking about?
No, I didn't catch this one yet.
All right, George, tell us what the ruling was.
Well, basically, it has to do with the fact that Haley 3 doesn't have a weapon that is valid for charging. She has a gun, but she doesn't have gunfighter, so she can't use it in melee. And the way Haley 3 works is that Haley 2 can, or the primary Haley, can cast any of the spells that are cast by the other 2 Haleys.
Sure.
So past or future. So the problem is, if you do a run charge order, and even if everybody could charge to something, Grandma Haley, the Haley Future, because she cannot charge, she must run. And if she runs, she can't cast spells. So basically, if you do a run charge order with that unit, if you want to get it anywhere up the board, you lose a third of your spells. Bang.
All right. So Scott, impressions. How does that change the gameplay with Haley 3?
I think if you're doing a run charge with Haley, you're going for the win with Haley, baby Haley. So
yeah, Haley 1.
Probably not going to be that much, because you're probably just going to try to outright kill him with that. So
I think that's fair enough. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move right along to our second segment of the day, because we are 10 minutes off the death clock right now. We're moving on to Ripped from the Forums. All right, we're going to talk about something a little more controversial today, gentlemen. And there's no better way to talk about a feminist issue than to have 4 dudes who play, War Machine to talk about it. So sorry to all the ladies out there. Now let's all quantify the fact that all 4 of us in this room are married, love our wives very, very much. So we are going to try to keep this as civil as possible and try to make our wives happy within this argument. We're going to talk about, on the forums, there's been an issue expressed once again, and this comes up probably 6-7 times a year, about the frequency of boob plates and high heels on warcasters, units, you name it, on female ones. There's no male units that are wearing next to nothing and sexily clad. So the question really is, do they have a place in modern wargaming?
What are you talking about? What about Doom Reavers? They're half naked.
There you go, Doom Reavers, ladies. They're pretty much just strippers. Yeah. And should the stats be altered on the caster to reflect their ridiculous costume? So let's talk a bit about that. So first off, is this an issue that we need to talk about? Scott?
No.
We're going to talk about it anyway.
Damn it.
We're going to try to... So first off, I think if you've met any... I think every once in a while you'll have somebody who's really hardcore against this type of thing. But the reality is... for example, my wife, if when she's looking at her casters, she wants them to look good.
Yes.
Now, yes, sometimes it gets a little ridiculous, but in the case of, let's say, the example that we talked about tonight was the Death Shadow mutineers. They're scantily clad, but I would say they're not ridiculously scantily clad.
Yeah.
They're not like there's no boobs like hanging out here. I think War Machine, out of all the different games on the market, isn't as bad as others. You've got casters like Connie, who are fully armored from head to toe.
She does still have the battle heels, though.
She has the battle heels, but...
What about Iron Mother?
Iron Mother. Iron Mother doesn't she have, like, pumps?
Yeah, well, Iron Mother isn't technically wearing any clothing at all because she's a robot. But...
Still, just saying.
Yeah, she still looks like that. Now, I think we need to make a distinction here because this is almost universally a problem on solos and warcasters.
Yeah, true. And
not on units, because where we see the rank and file troops, where we see a Winter Guard or Winter Guard, a marksman as well, the Widowmakers, sorry.
Yeah.
You have female, in fact, the unit leader of the Winter Guard Widowmakers is female.
Yeah.
The people who tend to be this, battle heels and boob plates tend to be warcasters, tend to be the people who were inspiring the armies.
Right. Okay,
so I don't necessarily see it as, it is, I can see how people would want less objectification of women, less of the pushing this particular stereotype, but I don't think that in setting, again, this is the fluff buddy
You don't think
argument here.
it's anti-setting?
I don't think it's anti-setting at all, because these are the women who are going out on the battlefield, killing people, inspiring their armies, and you want the ideal of feminine beauty for the men to fight for or fight over, as it were.
All right, it's an interesting argument you've placed.
How about we fix it in real life before we worry about messing with our games? Because every time we have a costume, we have a cop costume for a guy and a sexy cop costume for a girl. We have a Beetlejuice costume for a guy and a sexy Beetlejuice costume for a girl. So
Absolutely. This is not a isolated issue by any means, but some people would say that you need to target the things that you can change. Since we are wargamers and theoretically we can vote with our wallets, we should vote with our wallets in a way that, because we're already spending that money, we should vote with our wallets in a way that lets the company know that what we want are the less boob plates and battle heels.
Yeah,
not what I want.
Yeah. I mean, as a painter, and I think most, even female painters, knowing that there's been Meg Maples has written a couple articles on this exact point, because she's painted sexy busts and stuff, and I would say that she argues in the middle of the ground that she wants there's unnecessary nudity in some miniature gaming. I would argue on the fact that that's also the stuff that gets painted. If I just had to paint another woman in man's armor in just another model that looks the same as every other model in the unit, it part of the variety is making them look cool, having in the male models and the female models, and whether that's being scantily clad or not. And I think War Machine and Hordes, out of all the games out there, does the least of it. And when they do the pinup style stuff, they make a big deal out of it, and it's meant to almost be a little bit mocking.
Yes.
Somebody at PP has a great sense of humor, because I think if anything we got to talk about are the dogs and the ponies in the game.
Yes.
Because if you've painted one of these, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Red
Absolutely.
Rocket, my friend.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that they've taken there's a lot more to the game than just mini skirts and that chainmail. Now, the question really goes back to, if they're wearing high heels, should not their speed be maybe reduced by, it's a speed stat reduced by 2? Now I know what I'm going to argue, but I'm going to ask you guys.
I would say this is amongst the many places where rules should not be affected by what a model looks like. Because
I'm just going to say, have you seen a girl in heels run for a sale?
Oh no!
It happens.
Can you keep up with her? Because I know I can't.
Yeah. I think before they need to go back and fix those types of things, the first thing they should do is go get a new mold for the Black 13th, please.
Yeah.
So that they're in scale with the rest of, everything.
Yeah. Well, and I think the argument on that side is that those statistics are not done by the model; they're done to create a balanced game, and that's more of a concern to me as a player than my card reflecting what the model looks like. If every card looked like what the model looked like, and they're pretty good. I mean, if they've got 2 guns, then they generally get to shoot 2 guns. If they've got a sword and a gun, I mean, they're pretty good about stuff like that. But if all they did was focus that the model looked the same as the card stat, then yeah. Maelstrom, do we have any comments on this?
Oh, lots of comments.
On this evil conversation
are there
over
any
there on the street?
Any
Lots
you're
of
willing to repeat on air?
Yeah, there's a few. Brad was pointing out that Half a Scorn looks like the cast from Magic Mike.
See?
This is true.
Yeah.
It can also be used to distract your opponents. I mean, you got a nice looking little model sitting across the table.
Yeah. Fair.
Excuse me while I get out this microscope so I may open your boobies.
Ooh, hey, and that's the other thing. They're so damn small.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, oh yeah, baby. That's it. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on from this horrible, horrible topic, because obviously we cannot talk about this justly as a bunch of men. Let's be straight up honest. We as consumers are probably, as a large faction of males that play the game, and we are the market. Sorry, ladies, I know there's a few of you out there, but the main market, as far as I've ever seen, has been men. We're going to want to buy our women looking good, and we're not going to want a bunch of men with nipple rings all the time.
That's not true. I got my Doom Reavers. 2 units.
That's and thank God, only Doom Reaver. Well, no, because Thagrosh has a nipple ring too.
Okay,
Right.
come
Some
on,
of the
man.
Scorn guys would too.
So let's do this right now. For every Ammon Adraza, for every Doom Reaver, they're out there.
They're out there.
The man candy is out there.
Yeah, the man candy's out there, ladies. We're sorry that every once in a while the women candy offends you. It's not necessary, but it also, as a painter, I kind of like it. I'd rather have that than just more armored. Fully armored women all the time. Fully armored men, too. I mean, I just painted a dude's abs today. And
Hey, he looks
that
good.
looks better. I mean, it's fun to paint that. Not sexually fun, but whatever. Moving right along!
I think the shovel you're using to dig that hole is
I
getting a
just
little
dug
short.
it. I am really glad my wife is not into wargaming at all and is not watching this podcast on purpose. All right, we're going to move right on to Damn Infernals. This is our segment on a certain aspect of the game. I'm thinking about changing the name of this particular segment to Focus.
Focus.
We're going to talk today a bit about continuous effects. Now, one of the things that's really cool about having Scott on the show, Scott, one of the things that you've really focused on with Party Foul in the last little while is talking about the minutiae of the game, doing videos on how to play the game better. So we definitely are going to try to get you in on this as much as possible. Today, we're going to focus on continuous effects.
It's not fair because when I do videos, I do homework first. Just saying.
Oh.
Hey, we sent you the show notes a while ago.
Yeah, we sent you the show notes like 3 hours ago. There were no links in there, but you could have Googled it. So, George, tell us a bit about continuous effects. Start off with the rules, and then we'll talk a bit about it.
Well, continuous effects are the bad things that happen as sort of a secondary reaction to being either bathed in fire or corrosive acid or something like that. These are effects that happen at the beginning of your next turn that simulate the model being on fire or being burned from the corrosive acid.
So from a fluff standpoint, what we're talking about is you get lit on fire, you're still on fire.
You're still on fire, running around, screaming.
Okay.
Still taking damage. And how this manifests in the game is that during your maintenance phase, after all of the focus, after all the focus has been stripped off of models, specifically in War Machine, you will make a roll to see whether the continuous effect continues. On a 1 or a 2, on a d6, it goes out. So either the fire goes out or the corrosion stops. Any other number, your opponent is going to do a POW 12 damage roll against
That's
your
with fire.
model. That's with fire. If it's corrosion, it's just a single damage.
Right. And is there any? So corrosion and fire
No,
are the only two.
those are the only two. I was actually surprised. When I went to look this up, I was thinking, oh, there's got to be a couple other types. But when I went and looked, there was only the two, and I was trying to rack my brains why I thought there was more.
Rumor Nemo 4. I'm going to put that out there. Nemo 4 will have continuous effect lightning.
Ah, yes.
It's just like it's
The
like holding on
electro
to
Yeah.
not really.
They can be really, really bad for War Machine casters specifically, because War Machine casters tend to rely on their power fields to get by, to push them into that zone where they're not going to take damage from a lowly POW 12. Some of the old man stats, obviously Nemo, is going to have a really bad time when it's dice -2 on a POW 12.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so let's talk a bit about continuous effects. Let's get deeper into it. I think the hardest thing for new players is when to do continuous effects, and remembering that continuous effects are a thing. So Scott, tell me a bit about when does a continuous effect happen? When in this order do you do this, and how do we remember to do this?
Oh, it takes practice, but it does happen in the maintenance phase, which is before your control phase. But with warlocks, war casters, it does happen a little differently because at the beginning of your maintenance phase, you lose your focus. So then that's why you're raw. You do all your damage for the maintenance phase. Basically, the maintenance phase is everything that happens that you don't control, and then it goes to your control phase where now you have some control over what's happening, if that makes any sense.
It totally does. Yeah. And do you have any tricks for yourself? What do you do to remember it, or is it just because you've done it so many times it's just ingrained at this point?
Well, if my stuff is on fire, I forget because it's my stuff. I don't want it to burn. But if it's your stuff on fire, I'm going to remember because I want you to make that damage roll.
I think the first thing I would recommend as tournament players tokens.
Yes, token
Always use
everything.
tokens.
I mean,
Always tokens.
then there's some great tokens out there. I mean, Muson Minis does their wooden tokens. Privateer Press has the plastic tokens. I mean, there are enough continuous effects tokens out there on the market at this particular juncture that you should never be walking around without a bunch of tokens.
Yep.
If you're playing in tournaments and you do not mark the effect does not happen.
Ah, very important.
So if you call a judge over and you're like, Judge, that model was on fire, and the judge looks at the table, he's like, well, where's the marker? And if there's no marker, the judge is going to rule in favor of your opponent because
you didn't token the effect.
And if you're one of those people that's like, I refuse to pay lots of money for tokens, just go to your local glass store, buy a bag of beads, have red ones for your fire tokens.
One thing to point out, some of the Privateer Press sets do not have fire in factions that have quite prominent fire effects, because when the token sets were originally created, some of those models didn't exist. The classic problem is Legion. Ravagors were not released until after the token set, so even though Ravagors can put things on fire and have an animus that allows other things to put things on fire, there are no fire tokens in the base Legion set.
So in that case,
if you're using the PP tokens, you just write fire on it and put it beside a model.
Exactly.
I mean, it doesn't have to have a little fire symbol on it. You just write the word fire.
Yep.
You know,
it's just something to point out to people.
Precise with your opponent.
Absolutely.
So the next question is, moving on from just doing continuous effects, let's talk about using it, because I mean, there's times when it is the greatest thing in the world. I guess warcasters in particular, but let's talk a bit about some of the times you guys would. Let's talk about some tactics, I should say. George, tactics. What's your favorite tactic tip for using continuous effects?
Well, since I just mentioned the Ravagors are really great for getting rid of high defense, low arm infantry. They have two effects that make this awesome. One is their animus, which means that the 3-inch AoE that they're dropping on stuff lights guys on fire. Even if the POW, the halved POW, is so, even if the halved POW is so low that it won't really hurt them, the POW 12 fire roll will almost always do the job afterward. The other great thing is that, of course, it leaves a Scather template, and the Scather template is going to do 1 damage if they move through it. So that would probably be, the one that I can think of right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Of course, shooting at a caster, lighting it on fire, so awesome.
Scott, number 1 tip tactic for using continuous effects.
Anytime you can light something on fire is always going to be a good thing. The trolls have the fire eaters now, and they are stupid good. Use your own fire troll to light them on fire. With E-Madrak, you could then have them run into position. E-Madrak charges up feats, and then you're going to have 6 boosted sprays out there with 2 units, lighting everything on fire as they do it. And if you don't kill them by fluke, they die the next turn anyways.
And my number 1 tactic is corrosion on units, on 1-point units, is a thing of beauty, especially if you can get it into a large amount of them. If you don't kill the unit this round, you'll take them out the next.
Corrosion that you should also note is, like, for example, say you were doing it on a unit that had tough from Rupert. When you go to the maintenance phase and you roll for corrosion, tough is now gone.
Right. That is perfect. So, yeah, that's your way to get around Rupert, all you guys that are wondering out. All right, I think we pretty much covered it. Anything from the guys on the interwebs there, Maelstrom?
Not a whole lot. We're just kind of discussing how awesome Ravagors are.
Yeah, it is true.
One thing I do want to mention is getting rid of continuous effects. Because there are some things that you can do. I believe Purification will do it. There are some spells like Hex Blast, I think, that will do it as well. But one thing that a lot of people probably won't think about is incorporeal, especially in factions like Crix, where you can become incorporeal at the beginning of a turn or something like that.
Edeni, my friend.
It will shed all continuous effects, because incorporeal models cannot be affected by continuous effects. So it will either stop them from happening, or it allows you, Edeni, to just say, oh, I wish to not be on fire anymore.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
So Pistol Wraith, I got to remember to do that. Just don't attack the next round.
The trolls also have the stone with the UA. They can get rid of continuous effects within the bubble.
True that.
Excellent.
So yeah, just make sure you have enough focus on them to actually cover the people that are on fire. All right, guys, we're going to move right along from Damn Infernals to our next topic, which, of course, is to introduce again our guest, Scott Tallarico, host of Party Foul. Woot woot. Scott, tell me a bit about Party. Let's start with telling us a bit about Party Foul, how it started, who else is involved, and where you guys are going. Starting with, tell us about Party Foul.
Well, Party Foul started off with the idea of doing some battle box games, growing it to the 50-point games, and broadcasting on YouTube or whatever, just to show people the game. As we started that, we realized there was like some small interactions that we wanted to focus on, and that's what brought us into how to power attack, throw, how to slam. We started doing all those videos, and then it just kept growing from that. So we're just basically trying to grow the meta, help the newer players. The big names out there don't need us. They don't need to follow us or like us, or we're not there for them. They don't need to know anything that we're talking about. It's more for the newer players to make them better.
Sounds kind of familiar. Damn it! I thought we had that idea. Shit. How did you get into miniature gaming in the first place? What brought you in?
Years ago, I went to a buddy's house, and in his basement, he had a giant 6x4 table set up with a bunch of Space Marines scattered across the table. And that was enough to hook me. I loved the look of the miniatures, and played Rogue Trader, Space Marines for years, and then kind of died off for a while. Went back to 40K. Won a doubles tournament with a buddy at Black Knight, and we won like a battle box each, which was like the $140 ones or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the store let us trade that in for something else, and I bought a whole bunch of War Machine stuff, and that's how I got into War Machine.
What faction are you playing right now, and why?
Right now I'm doing Crix. The reason why is because the year before I was doing Trolls, and I hated Crix. So every year at TempleCon, a bunch of us do a faction reset. We all switch factions and then practice for a whole year again for the next TempleCon. So I switched to Crix, and I've been playing them ever since. Basically just Gorshade 3 and Body and Soul.
Well, that interests me. When you talk about doing a faction reset, what do you guys do? Like, you sit around the table and be like, okay, I'll take all your crap. Do you guys do like some swaps and stuff? Is that the deal?
Some people did. I know Rich did that. He borrowed all Greg's Crix. I just went whole into it. I just bought it all myself. I knew what I wanted to play, and I built 2 50-point lists, which I thought I would stick just to that. And next thing you know, I own the whole faction. Because I've got, buyer's ADD. I just need to buy more stuff. I bought Kador at the same time, just dabbling in that because I wanted to learn Butcher 3. So I've been playing some fun Wednesday games just to figure out Butcher 3 because he was always a threat when I was playing Trolls. So I wanted to understand him better, and best way to learn is to play it.
I think this actually brings up kind of an interesting point that I've been learning in the last couple of months. I think the only way to really learn a faction is to play it. And then, so I just switched into Trolls this week just because Trolls was one of those bricks that I haven't been able to really crack. So I figured the only way to really figure it out was to play it for a while. And I think that makes you a better player.
Oh, it does for sure. If you can afford it or have people you can trade with, playing it's always better. But playing against it helps too. I've played enough against Circle in the last 3 months that I don't necessarily have to play the faction. I just got to play against the faction to know how to beat them.
Absolutely. All right, so tell me about some of the other people involved in Party Foul and where you guys are going from here.
Just Greg and I are basically the main two. We do most of the videos and stuff. There's some contributors that help out once in a while, like Rich from Hobby Kingdom, and we have a new editor. Josh has decided to come on board and help us do some of the editing on the website because my English was horrible. I have some funny things to say sometimes, but I can't write worth a bean. So right now we're going to do more videos. We're on the summer hiatus. We got a bunch in the tank right now that I can just release, 1 or 2 a week, and that'll get us through the summer till we can start recording again. And with the website, we just post up. Like right now, I'm doing to tier or not to tier. I'm basically taking some of the top tiers in each faction, and I kind of break it down per tier and whether or not you think it's worth it, whether you should play it or not, and what you should look to beat the tiers. So we just keep growing, and whatever, it's all for fun. We don't make any money doing this. Some people think we do. We don't. So, we do it because we love it, and we just...
Dude, you're doing it wrong. We're rolling in the Benjamins here. Just last night, I was like, I had all these like $50 bills from doing Moose Machine. I laid them out in the bed and just rolled around on it for a while.
I need some Moose Machine money then.
Yeah, the Moose Machine bucks are just rolling in, yo.
And this is the first I'm hearing about these Moose Machine.
Oh,
With the YouTube channel
Will's been rolling around
and
on
our
it. You don't
website, I think we've made $100 over the last year.
Wow,
So
that won't even cover
covered
hosting.
the expense of having a website. So
Yeah.
I mean, whatever.
Yeah, but I mean,
we get to meet some really cool people like John Damaris at Muse on Minis. He's been awesome. I met him at TempleCon. He was a great guy. We shot the shit a lot. Ended up playing against him in a tournament, which was a ton of fun. And he smoked me top of one when I was playing Runes of War. I just got schooled, which was awesome. I love to learn. I love when someone can trick me and just get me with a gotcha moment, and I totally learned on that moment. And then we met him again at the SOO, and pulled us aside, and he said he wanted to sponsor us and stuff. So we're just like, oh, okay. I'm like, that sounds all right. Gave us a bunch of free product, and we use it in the videos, and got all this terrain and stuff, and so we just promote them whenever we can. So I mean, it's just a bunch of cool people that you can meet when you're doing something you love. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons that we do as much with Moose Machine as we do, is because, as much as we like hanging around in basements doing podcasts, it's much more fun to actually get out there with a camera, stick it over a table, and get people actually playing the game, because that's when the greatest moments show up. When you've got two guys trying to figure out why their caster just died at the beginning of the second turn, why all these dice have come up quadruple ones, and being able to send the video to their buddy, look at this, I rolled quad ones 4 times in a row.
No, that's because E came.
Well, yes, he came.
Okay. So the next question we're going to move right into is, let's talk a bit about the World Ender event that you've been running. Tell us about some of the events that you're running right now. Let's just talk about the World Ender. You've been working on the World Ender for a while. What is the World Ender?
Oh, the World Ender. It's Party Foul presents the World Ender Invitational. I want to make it long as possible. But yeah, it's basically shortened down to the World Ender. There's a bunch of events out here that were local called Store Wars, which is really cool, where you'd play like 2 events at each store. The top 16 players overall were invited to the finals, and it just got the best players in the area would all get to play. So I took that idea, I changed it a little bit. Instead of having this top 16 players, you had to win an event to get in. So I contacted some of the local stores around here, see who they would be interested in, and then I wanted to be able to draw a wider meta, so I reached out to Ottawa. After that, I had a guy contact me about Quebec, so we got them on board. We have friends from Buffalo, so I reached out to them, and they wanted in. So next thing you know, we have probably 14 events over the next year until September of next year, when the finals will be 16 players, 2 of which can qualify through points. So that way it still gives people an incentive to go to more than just one event.
Love it. That's awesome.
So where are you holding the finals?
The finals will be in Burlington, the same place that the Ontario Team Championships was held.
Excellent.
Because I had a good relationship there. So, and again, for people who don't know this, I don't make any money doing this. I do this because it's fun.
Now, tell me a bit about. So, is this the only event that you've sort of organized, or have you organized a few events? What sort of made you jump headlong into such a big undertaking?
Well, I wanted. We had talked earlier, because you've heard about the Ontario Team Championship, the OTC. So I ran that this year, which would have been March. But it started, 8 months ago before that. I just wanted to play the WTC format, and I thought it'd be a lot of fun. I thought that people would be interested in it, and I was like, let's get something going. Reached out to a couple people, and then people were like, oh, I'm interested in helping out, and then it kind of just fizzled and died a little bit, so I just took it on myself. Got, capped it at 16 teams, so we could do it in one day. We had 16 teams sell out in 7 days, I think, and it's 80 players all in one day. We crushed out 4 rounds, and the day was perfect. No issues whatsoever. And because of that, I was like, what can I do next? I thought I was doing like a 3-man tournament 6 months later, but then I didn't know numbers. 32 teams. I can just complicated everything, and then I just thought of the World Ender instead. So we did an invitational where I don't have to do anything. All the stores are in charge of running their own event. They do the prizing and everything the same as they would any steamroller. The only difference is they send me a small cut to cover the cost of the final, so there's no expense to me at the end.
Sweet. Wait a second. So what I'm hearing is I don't have to do any work, and then they send me a bunch of money to cover my expenses at the end.
I didn't say a bunch of money.
As someone who runs a lot of events, I can tell you, every penny you get in for something like that goes right back out that door.
Oh, absolutely. Well, there's no money in this.
I think the way it works out right now, after I collect all money from 14 events, I come out $40 ahead. I did drive to Markham to go talk to a store out there with the 407. I'm probably had $10 at the end of it.
Yeah, maybe if you're lucky.
And that's not including the time it took to contact every store, email, call, phone call, all that kind of stuff, right? Like, I don't make any money.
No. I have not. I've yet to meet the person who makes money running War Machine events. I've never heard of that actually being being something that could happen.
So let's move on from. We'll leave a link for the World Ender in the show notes today, as well as it'll be on our Facebook page as well as the Moose Machine page, so that you can find out where the next World Ender event is. Sorry, Party Foul presents the World Ender
Invitational.
Invitational.
Got to get all the words.
Got to get that right.
There has been 2 events so far. One in Ottawa, one in Kingston. Maybe we'll just touch on that.
Yep.
The winner of the first one was Benoit. I don't want to pronounce his last name because I'm not French. I'll probably butcher it. You guys probably know Benoit. The second event was just held last weekend. It was Kevin Austin who pulled the victory off, which was awesome to see.
He was a great player.
The next event will be August 29th in Buffalo.
So hold on, it was a Kingston. So you had Banky there, you had Marc Andre, and you had the other Tim 2. Tim Harvey. I mean, you had some great players at that event.
David Beauchamp was there too.
Oh my!
Beauchamp was there.
Wow,
as well?
He got second.
Wow. So that's like that's a pretty heavy-handed event right there.
Yeah,
that's no joke. Yeah.
I was in Kingston and unfortunately not able to be there, but they were streaming, and just as I'm about to go into the event that I was going to see, I pull up the stream and there's Tim Banky playing Marc Andre, and I was like, wow, I got to make the decision. Is the family worth going into this event?
That was like round. I'm going to say that was round 2 or 3 as well. So you knew that
matchups because Banky had to play Marc Andre, and then Marc Andre had to play Beauchamp. Like it was.
That was a Shark Tank.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I mean, if you're new to the stream and we're yelling out names, we're talking about some of the top players in our meta, Canada. We're talking about one of the top judges for the Worlds, as well as Team Canada members. I mean, if you were at all excited about the competition level War Machine shit, that was a worthy event to be at.
Oh yes.
All right, so moving on from the World Ender, let's talk a bit about some of the instructional videos, because I think you and I talked a bit about this at SOO. You guys have really moved in the direction of doing more and more instructional videos. What is it that got you there? Why did you guys move in that direction?
Again, it kind of just happened. From doing some of the demo games and smaller games we thought we were using as a stepping stone, we realized some of the complexities out there, and the newer players would ask us questions. So instead of having to explain it every time, we're like, why don't we just throw it on video and we just throw it up on YouTube, and then people can link to it from there. So that's one of the best things that I love to see is when somebody asks a question on the forum, and the guy's like, oh, the guys at Party Foul did it, and they post up the video, and I'm just like, yeah, all right, that's pretty cool.
All right, so tell me, to date, which one of those videos is the most off?
The most off?
The one that you screwed up the rules.
The one that comes to mind is probably the Tuffalo one, because I think in the video I said the Tuffalos could slam their own models and follow up. So you could slam the Fenblades, for example, and then still follow up and get another attack, which only works on enemy models, which I still haven't gone back to fix yet.
There you guys, even the pros get it wrong. I mean, I don't. Because when I get it wrong, I'm actually just viciously cheating.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's talk a bit about your pre-game ritual. You go to a lot of tournaments the same as we do. And even before you do a cast, what is your pre-game ritual? What do you kind of do to psych yourself up?
I take a big shit, man. I make sure I'm cleaned out. I don't want to have to go in the middle of a game. I'm done.
That's fair. All right. So last week you learned to bring aspirin. This week you've learned to take a dump.
Big shit.
All right. Fair. What item do you keep in your battle bag tournament tray that is different from everybody else, that you take pride in, and why?
I don't think I have anything different. I always keep a couple chocolate bars in there in case I need some energy. I always got a bottle of water. My favorite thing is my broken egg laser, because that thing's like a lightsaber. It's so bright. So if you're checking line of sight, you just bust that thing out and you can blind someone across the room.
Yeah, I have heard nothing but good returns on those broken egg lasers.
For the $25 US they're amazing. I guess the only thing I can do now is shamelessly plug this. I keep this in my bag.
That would be the Party Foul special dice. When are those showing up, Scott?
I don't know. I'm too lazy. I just got to post something.
All right.
I got a huge bag of them beside me, and all I got to do is put it on the Facebook page and be like, "Hey guys, if you want some dice, $10 plus shipping, and they're yours."
See, that's why I'm rolling in the Benjamins.
Because of all those moose machines.
Because of all those
all
the moose machine swag I'm
vey.
always selling. All right, so let's talk a bit about. We're going to move into our little round table. We got about 5 minutes to talk a bit about some things. Do we have any questions for Scott from the audience at all, there, Maelstrom?
No.
Okay, perfect. Moving right along. So today's roundtable discussion, we're going to talk a bit about rules. We're going to talk a bit about getting them right, getting them wrong. So starting with you, George, because we haven't heard from you in a little bit. What rule do you get wrong all the time?
Oh, do I get wrong all the time, or did I used to get wrong?
Well, I mean, let's talk about what's the big rule that you got wrong?
I think it's something that almost everybody gets wrong, and that is in hordes, when you are transferring to a beast, everybody takes a focus off of their caster and puts it on their beast. And that always, because you think to yourself, oh, so the reason that I can't transfer to a beast that's full is because obviously I can't force him anymore. So I can't make him take the damage. So obviously I must need to put Fury onto that beast. And that was the way that I played it for the longest time. And it made sense to me in a rules standpoint. It made sense that every time I needed to transfer something, that I would just move it over to the beast. That's wrong. It's bad.
Well, you taught it to me this week, and I've been playing it your way.
But it is something that I got wrong. I don't know. It was easily 6 months that I was screwing that up.
Scott, what do you got?
The last major rule I probably got wrong was at the end of our Domination League when I was playing in the finals against a rep player with my Runes of War list. For some reason, I did it to myself when I thought when I two-handed through one of my Rune Shapers, it would contact the wall and stop movement there. So I changed my plan and didn't do it. And it was only afterwards that I learned that, no, I could have done it. It would totally clear the wall. I always thought that it would contact the obstruction, but I was wrong.
I thought that too. Maelstrom?
Nope, clears walls.
I thought that too.
Maelstrom, what do you got?
Pick anything, basically.
Pick up the damn dice! All right, so let's talk about to you guys, just put this out to you. What do you guys think are some of the harder rules within the game to understand, and how do we crack that nut? Scott, within the game itself, what do you think right now is sort of that rule interaction we all have trouble really wrapping our minds around?
Probably disabled DBD, disabled box destroyed, is the one that always was the hardest for me. Was trying to remember, because there's so many different things that trigger on disabled box destroyed that you have to sometimes have your book open on it to figure out what triggers on where and to see how all those interactions work. With like remove from play, for example, triggers after boxed but before destroyed. So you get your tough, because tough is triggered on boxed. So it's kind of like, I think. See, I don't even know.
Yeah,
Okay.
see, I'm already confused. George, what do you got to say on that one?
I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure...
Tough might trigger on disabled.
I think tough triggers on disabled because I think if you have something that does RFP like the Animus on the Scythian...
That triggers on boxed, I think.
Oh, that triggers on boxed. Okay, so it gets around the tough checks.
No, the Animus gets around tough anyways. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It just says the model doesn't get a tough, and then it moves from play. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's stuff like that. What do I think is really hard to understand? Well, now that you've said that, of course, now that's all I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
We have a question from the chat.
Bring it.
Carnivore, does it ignore tough?
I don't have carnivore.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up.
I don't think carnivore ignores tough. I could be wrong.
I will pull up carnivore and...
This is why I do research ahead of time.
Yeah.
Do a video on carnivore, I'll have read it ahead of time. You ask me a question on the spot, I'm like, whoa.
I don't know. It does some stuff and things.
I think one of the harder things for people to just in general get their brain around is the focus or fury mechanic. Like
Right.
It seems really obvious to us now as players, but it's not something that you see in basically any other game system. You don't see it in a GW system. You don't see it in anything else. So people don't tend to be ready for that. It's one of the first things that people really have to come to grips with.
Well, I was going to say order of operations. I think that's the first hard thing to I mean, I still have a card that I keep in front of me so that I remember when things happen. Like continuous effects, for example, or figuring out what unit cohesion, for example, or anything along those lines. You know, all of those, trying to figure out when things happen within your turn is always, especially in a tournament setting when you're trying to rush and move forward. I mean, how many times everybody out there has forgotten to hand out their focus at the beginning of a turn or reave their focus as a Hordes player. We've all done it because order of operations can actually be difficult because there's a lot of little niddly.
When you're playing Convergence, order of operations is your god.
Yeah.
You must know what's going when. When I started playing Convergence, every time I started my turn, I basically just took a minute off the clock to try and figure out who was going to go when, because it takes that long to figure out how your focus chain is going to run. After a while, it becomes second nature, but it is something that you really have to get to. So just because we had the question, Carnivore triggers on boxes, on when a model is boxed.
Before RFP.
So
wouldn't that mean that since it's boxed, it triggers and then...
Target friendly model unit gains +2 to melee attack rolls against living models. When the affected model boxes a living model with a melee attack, the boxed model is removed from play, and this model heals D3.
You still get your tough.
Yeah, so you're going to get your tough before it goes away.
All right, to close this out, guys, really quickly. Best I'm a bonehead and didn't understand the rule story. Starting with you, George. What's your best I'm a bonehead and didn't get that? Something that you screwed up for years.
Oy. Screwed up for years, or the worst one?
Well, the silliest one, or the most ridiculous.
The most entertaining one.
The most entertaining one? Oh, geez. Not toughing once on an entire table full of trolls. I was playing my wife's army. I played an entire game, and as the last of my models are dying, and he's making the attack roll on my caster, he looks at me and says, "Don't trolls have tough?"
Scott, what's your best I'm a bonehead and didn't remember the rules story?
Probably when the Stormwall first came out and you drop your lightning pods. When they do damage against a jack, you disrupt them. But when I first started playing it, I just thought if you just dropped the lightning pod, it automatically disrupted them, regardless of if you damage them.
My best one is, of course, thinking that all epic casters got to have a bonded jack. I did that for years in tournaments. I'm awesome. Maelstrom, best I'm a bonehead and didn't remember the rules story.
Last night?
Yeah, last night.
Forgetting
to activate half my models.
Order of operations.
Order of operations.
Hard for new players. All right, we're going to move right on to the lightning round. Anybody?
Oh, no.
This is so current leader in the lightning round is Marc-Andre. I believe he's got 13 points.
Yeah, and that was in one round.
Somehow he managed to score 13 points in one round. So Scott, I don't know if you haven't watched the show yet. So the lightning round, I'm going to ask you guys 10 Horde/War Machine related questions. They can be specific stat questions. They can be lore questions. It's a complete random bag. Whoever has the answer first out of all three of you guys sitting here, you have to make the buzzer sound. So, and then you're the person that gets to answer the question. So starting at the top, what is the name of Sorcia's melee weapon?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't think
Nobody, no points for anybody. It is Frostfang. Frostfang.
Frostfang.
This is going to be different. We don't have. I've actually probably made these harder this week because Marc-Andre was like, "It's this, it's this, it's this."
Thanks for making me look dumb.
Yeah. I'm about to feel really bad. And the questions will be really easy next week. All right, POW of the Celestial Fulcrum's lightning bolt.
I'm gonna say POW 10.
POW 12.
Well,
Oh, you're all wrong. It is actually POW 14. All right, moving on.
Damn it.
Moving on to a lore question.
Gotta get me a fulcrum.
Terran de la Rossi's partner in crime. Name of Terran.
Rutger Hauer.
Very good. All right,
Nice.
1 point to Scott so far. Name 2 of P. Gorshade's spells.
No.
Mr. Crix player.
I'm playing Crix, but I haven't played Gorshade yet.
I got no idea.
Nobody. All right. Well, I would have accepted Bleed, Hexblast, Magic Blight, Shadowmancer, and Soulgate.
Well, I would have known Hexblast.
All
That's
right.
one.
This is nobody's gonna get this one. What is the Gunbor's Animus?
Gunport. Yeah, it must have an animus.
Isn't it like Return Fire or something?
It's not. It's Counterblast. Counterblast.
Oh, that's close.
So close.
I say give him half a point for that.
All right, I'll give you half a point. So Scott's at 1.5 points to Mark Andre's 13. All right, this is an easy one. Who is the mortal enemy of the Convergence of Cirrus?
Oh, that's easy. Circle.
It's actually the Cephalix.
Well,
The
they're both
admitted-
underground, but Circle are the people fighting against the Convergence.
They are, but they're so here's the thing: is that they consider the Cephalix the mortal enemy, whereas Circle considers the Convergence of Cirrus a problem. I'm going to give you half a point because it is arguable. All right. Name the project that the elves built that ended with the death of most of the elven, or the disappearance of most of the elven gods.
I'm going to say the Dawn Gate?
The Bridge of Worlds.
Oh, Bridge of Worlds.
Bridge of Worlds. Damn it! I thought that was an easy one.
Eh.
All right. The year War Machine Mark II was released.
2013.
It's actually
Mark II?
Mark II.
I'm going to say 2010.
It was 2010. All right.
Yeah.
We're now 1.5 points even, ladies and gentlemen.
We suck at War Machine, apparently.
All right. All right. We're getting into some interesting questions here. So, name both Cadoran Colossals.
Victor and Conquest.
There you go.
Good job.
That's 2.5 points for Scott. Final question of the night for 5 points. Whoever takes this one takes the whole game. And nobody's going to get this because I'm throwing in the hardest lore question because last week we were told that our lore questions weren't hard enough. So this one is, who was the first to tame the Titans in the Scorn Empire?
Makeda.
It's actually Morcash. It's Morcash. You were close, though. You were
Yeah.
close.
You actually named a caster.
You did. You did. All right. So that was the lightning round for today. We're going to start wrapping things up. George, before we wrap up, tell us what events we have coming up in the local Canadian area if you want to take part in events.
Well, there are 3 that I'll mention right now. Of course, there's the World Ender on the 29th. That's not actually in Canada, but it is definitely an event based here. In our local meta, the next event that's happening is actually this Saturday at Fandom 2. We're doing our version 2 book release event.
Ooh.
In our meta, we always do 2 book release events. We do the primary one, which is limited to either Hordes or War Machine, depending on which book it is that's coming out. In our second version, it's always much more relaxed rules. You can bring both different sides of the game.
Cool.
And you have a lot more options, i.e. proxying models and stuff. And then the third one I'd like to bring up is a little bit farther in the future, but because I'm running it, I get to talk about it. Blood and Iron is coming up. It's in Ottawa, September 5th and 6th, and it is a War Machine weekend qualifier. So a win there will get you a golden ticket to War Machine weekend.
Scott, any cool events happening in your area coming up?
We got Star Wars Final, which is August 22nd at some location because I didn't qualify, so I don't know.
Screw them.
I only went to like 4 events and I was like 20th. It's like, damn it.
Yeah, I think I'm officially off the Ottawa Invitational list. I won like 3 games in the first round. I was up there. I was like, I'm in, and then I'm like completely out. Now the people that are in the Invitational now are like 20 points ahead of me. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining us for another round of This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes, and thank you to Scott for joining us. I hope you enjoyed yourself as much as we enjoyed having you on the show.
Anytime, boys.
There are many, 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 many ways in order to get in touch with us, to play with us, to have fun here with the Death Clock. The first way, of course, is to watch the Twitch stream live. If you're watching the Twitch stream live and you are logged in, you can participate in the chat like our 2 viewers did today. If you are not able to watch it on the stream, you can, of course, get it from iTunes. You can go onto our YouTube channel, which will be in the show notes. And you can find us on Facebook, on the Moose Machine Facebook page, as well as our webpage. We try to post up-to-the-date, cool, interesting news from the world of privateer press all day long, every day. And I think that's about all the time we have.
Why don't we get Scott to pimp Party Foul?
Scott, if you want to take part of, if you want to watch Party Foul, where do we find you?
We're on YouTube. Just do a search for Party Foul. It'll pop for sure. We have a website called partyfoulwmh.com. And then, of course, on Facebook, Party Foul, everything War Machine Hordes.
And I'll be the one on Reddit this week that's posting the exact same thing as Scott 5 times faster and getting more upvotes. And I think that's actually all the time we have for today. So, gentlemen, we are 1 minute before the death clock. Dice down.